Jack stood at his usual spot, leaning over the edge of a dusty workbench in the small space station's repair bay. It was a quiet day, one of those days when there was little to do besides clean up or fix things that didn't really need fixing. The station, located on the edge of human space, didn't see much action. Most days, the only visitors were traders passing through or diplomats from different species. Jack was used to it, enjoyed the calm, even if it meant being alone for most of the day. Today, however, was different. A ship from the RXIIA species known for their sharp intellect and peaceful diplomacy had just docked. Jack had heard that a diplomat was aboard, but he didn't expect to be involved. However, as he was finishing his latest repair job, a soft voice called out to him from behind. "Excuse me, human? Are you the one who fixes things here?" the voice asked. Jack turned around and found himself looking up at an alien woman. She was tall, with sleek silver skin that shimmered like metal. Her eyes, a deep shade of violet, seemed to glow with an inner light. She wore a uniform that looked more like a flowing gown, and her hair, long and black, fell gracefully around her shoulders. She was beautiful, but there was something almost regal about her, as though she didn't belong in this small, quiet station. "Yes, I'm Jack," he said, standing up and wiping his hands on a rag. "How can I help you?" "My ship's navigation system is malfunctioning." "I was told you might be able to help," she replied, her voice calm but with a hint of worry in it. Jack smiled. Not because he wanted to flirt, but because he was used to fixing things. It was his job. "Sure, I'll take a look." "What seems to be the problem?" She seemed to hesitate for a moment, her eyes flicking to the ship docked outside. "The system won't respond to commands. I'm afraid it might cause problems later." "If it isn't repaired soon—" "No problem," Jack said. "I'll check it out." Together, they made their way to the ship. Jack could feel her eyes on him as they walked, but he kept his focus on the ship ahead. It was a beautiful vessel, sleek and silver, just like the woman who walked beside him. As they reached the ship's hatch, she paused and looked at him once more. "You are Jack, correct?" she asked again, almost as though she was trying to convince herself. "That's right," he answered, turning to face her. "And you are?" She seemed to take a deep breath before speaking. "Lyra, I am a diplomat for the Rixie. I'm here on a peace mission." "Nice to meet you," Jack said, offering her a friendly smile. Lyra didn't return the smile right away. Instead, her expression was serious as she motioned for him to follow her into the ship. The inside was pristine, with smooth white walls and soft blue lighting that gave the space a calming atmosphere. Jack immediately set to work, opening a panel near the console and starting to examine the wiring. He could hear Lyra's footsteps behind him, but she didn't speak at first. Jack didn't mind the silence. It was peaceful, after a few minutes. "A fiddling with the wires?" Jack muttered to himself. "Ah, there it is." The problem was clear a loose connection in the system that was preventing the controls from working. Lyra stepped closer, her presence warm, but Jack focused on his task. "I think I've got it," he said, tightening the wires in place. "Should be good to go now." She didn't move. Jack looked up to see her standing there, watching him intently. "Thank you," she said quietly. Jack smiled, feeling a little awkward under her gaze. "No problem. It's what I do." Lyra's violet eyes softened, and for a moment there was an odd silence between them. Jack had worked with alien species before, but this was different. There was something about Lyra that was ... captivating then. As though she couldn't hold it back any longer, Lyra blurted out, "I love you." Jack froze, his hand still on the ship's console. His heart skipped a beat. "What?" Lyra's eyes widened in shock, as if she had just realized what she had said. I'm sorry. I didn't mean." Before Jack could respond, she turned and dashed out of the room, her footsteps echoing down the hallway. Jack stood there, stunned, unable to process what had just happened. Was it a mistake? Did she mean it? Or had she just said the wrong thing? He shook his head, trying to clear his thoughts. He wasn't sure if he should go after her or just forget it. But as he turned back to the console, he found his mind drifting back to Lyra's words. "I love you." Jack couldn't stop thinking about Lyra. After she ran off, he stood there for a long time, staring at the empty hallway where she had disappeared. Her words echoed in his head, and he wasn't sure what to make of them. I love you. Had he heard her correctly? Makes sense? She was a diplomat, calm and collected, not someone who would say something like that out of the blue. And yet, the way she had said it, so sincere, so honest, stuck with him. He tried to shake it off, telling himself it was probably just a misunderstanding. She was an alien, after all. Maybe their emotions were different. Maybe they expressed themselves in strange ways. Jack knew that humans and aliens didn't always understand each other's feelings, but he couldn't help but wonder if there was more to it. The thought lingered in his mind for hours. The rest of the day passed in a blur of routine. Jack did his best to focus on his work, but his thoughts kept returning to Lyra. He tried to convince himself that it wasn't important. It was just a slip of the tongue. After all, she had been so quick to run away. But there was something in her eyes, something in the way she looked at him that made him think it wasn't just a mistake. That evening, Jack found himself standing outside the docking bay staring out at the stars. The space station was quiet, and the lights of distant ships twinkled like tiny fireflies in the vast emptiness of space. It was peaceful here, a place for people to rest, to find solace before their next journey. But tonight, Jack didn't feel peaceful. Instead, he felt a strange tug in his chest, an emotion he couldn't quite place. Suddenly, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned, half expecting to see Lyra, but instead, it was one of the other station workers, a friend of his named Mark. Hey, Jack, Mark said, walking up to him. You look like you've got something on your mind. Everything okay? Jack forced a smile, trying to push away the thoughts of Lyra. Yeah, I'm fine. Just thinking. Mark raised an eyebrow, clearly not buying it. Thinking about what? Something on the station? Or something else? Jack hesitated for a moment, unsure if he wanted to share his confusion with Mark. But then, he decided it wouldn't hurt to talk. Had to get it out somehow. I met an alien diplomat today, Jack said slowly. She came in for a repair, and I helped her with her ship. But something happened, and now I can't stop thinking about her. Mark's eyes widened. An alien diplomat? That sounds interesting. What happened? Jack sighed. She said something. She said, I love you. Mark stared at him, blinking in surprise. Wait, she said what? Jack rubbed the back of his neck, feeling awkward. I know it sounds crazy, but she just blurted it out and then she ran off. I don't know what to think. I mean, she's a diplomat. She's calm and collected, always in control. But she said it like she meant it. Railing beside Jack, looking out at the stars. Well, it sounds like she's got some feelings for you, man. I don't know, Jack said, shaking his head. It doesn't make sense. I barely know her, and she's an alien. We don't even speak the same way, let alone understand each other's emotions. Mark chuckled. Yeah, that's true. But maybe she's not so different from you after all. Maybe she's just like any other person who falls for someone. Jack frowned. But why would she run away? Why would she really felt that way? Why would? She'll hide from me? Mark shrugged. Maybe she's scared. Maybe she's never felt this way before. You've got to remember, she's from a different culture, man. Emotions might be hard for her to express. Jack sighed again, feeling even more confused than before. I just don't get it. One moment, she's this calm, composed diplomat, and the next, she's saying she loves me and running away. Mark patted him on the back. You'll figure it out, man. Maybe give her some space. If it's real, she'll come back and explain. If not, well, you'll know that too. Jack nodded, but the uncertainty still weighed heavily on him. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. There was more to Lyra's words than he understood. The next day, Jack made his way back to the docking bay to check on the ship he had repaired for Lyra. He was surprised to find that her ship was still there, docked and untouched. He figured that by now, she would have left, heading back to her homeworld, or wherever she was supposed to go. But no, the ship remained, quiet and still, like it was waiting. Jack found himself standing in front of the ship once again. Didn't know what he expected to happen, but the longer he stared at it, the more he felt an urge to go inside and find her, to ask her what she meant. to ask if she really felt the way she said. Before he could second-guess himself, Jack pressed the button to open the hatch and stepped inside. The familiar hum of the ship surrounded him, and he walked down the corridor toward the main hall. There, standing near the doorway, was Lyra. She turned at the sound of his footsteps, her eyes wide in surprise. "You're here," she said softly. Jack took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. "I had to see you again. I couldn't stop thinking about what you said." Lyra's face flushed, and she looked down, unsure of what to say. The silence between them grew thick, but Jack could see the same emotion in her eyes that he had seen the day before. "I meant it," she whispered. Jack stepped closer, his heart racing. "Then why did you run away?" Lyra looked up at him, her violet eyes soft. "Was afraid." Jack stood in front of Lyra, his heart pounding in his chest. The words she had spoken the day before echoed in his mind. "I meant it," she had said, her voice soft, almost like a confession. But even now, standing before her, Jack still wasn't sure what to make of it. She was an alien, a diplomat, and everything about their worlds was different. How could she really mean it? And why had she run away? Lyra looked down, her eyes glistening with uncertainty. "I didn't know how to handle it," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've never felt this way before, and I don't understand it." Jack felt a wave of sympathy wash over him. He couldn't even imagine what it would be like for her, a being from a distant world, to experience emotions that were so foreign to her. In her species, emotions were carefully controlled, hidden behind layers of logic and reason. And here, she was, standing before him, trying to make sense of something as raw and unpredictable as love. "I get it," Jack said softly, taking a step closer to her. "I've never felt anything like this either. But I can't stop thinking about you. Ever since you said those words, I can't ignore it." Lyra raised her head and looked into his eyes, her expression a mixture of hope and fear. "But I don't know if I can. ... If I should. My people. My mission here. It's all so complicated. I've been taught to keep my emotions in check, to be strong, logical. But when I saw you, everything just ... changed." Jack took another step forward, his eyes never leaving hers. "Lyra, I don't know what will happen between us. But I can't pretend I don't feel something too. Maybe it's crazy. Maybe it's unexpected. But I'm willing to take that chance if you are." Lyra's heart skipped a beat as she processed his words. She had always been taught to be careful with her emotions, to never let them cloud her judgment. But standing in front of Jack, she felt something different, something she had never experienced before. It was new, it was confusing, but it was real. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't sure if being cautious was the right choice. "I don't want to hurt you," Lyra said, her voice trembling. "I don't want to bring you into something you don't understand. My people are ... Well, we are not like humans. Our worlds are different, our ways are different. You don't know what you're getting into." Jack smiled softly, stepping even closer. "Maybe I don't. But I want to find out. I want to understand. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together." For a moment, there was silence between them. The words Jack had spoken hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Lyra looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity there. She had never been one to show vulnerability, but something about Jack made her feel safe enough to let her guard down. "You're not afraid of me?" she asked, her voice hesitant. "No," Jack replied, shaking his head. "Why would I be? You're not some dangerous creature. You're a person, just like me. Right now, you're the only one I care about." Lyra felt a warmth spread through her chest. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced, but it was real. And as much as she wanted to deny it, she couldn't ignore the pull she felt toward him. "I don't know if I can stay," Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have responsibilities, a mission. My people need me. But I can't leave this behind. I can't ignore what I'm feeling for you." Jack took her hands gently in his touch warm and reassuring. "You don't have to decide anything. Right now, we can take things slow. Just Don't run away again. Don't hide from this. Lyra's heart raced as she looked into his eyes. She had spent so much of her life hiding from emotions, burying them beneath logic and duty. But here, with Jack, it felt like everything she had been taught to believe was falling away. She had never allowed herself to be vulnerable before. But with Jack, it felt safe. It felt right. I don't know what the future holds, Lyra said softly, her voice filled with uncertainty. But maybe, maybe, we can figure it out together. Jack smiled, his heart lightened by her words. I hope so. I really hope so. For the first time in what felt like forever, Lyra allowed herself to smile. It was a small smile, but it was a start. A sign that maybe, just maybe, she was ready to embrace this strange new feeling that had taken over her. As Jack and Lyra stood there, their hands intertwined, the stars outside the ship seemed to shine a little brighter. The future was uncertain, and there were still many obstacles to face. But for now, they were together, and that was enough. Days passed since Jack and Lyra had that conversation. They had agreed to take things slow, but both found it hard to stay away from each other. Jack would visit her ship whenever he could, and they would talk for hours about their worlds, their cultures, and everything in between. Each time, they grew closer. Though neither of them was ready to admit how deep their feelings had become, Lyra still struggled with her emotions. She had spent her entire life suppressing them, learning to control everything she felt. But when she was with Jack, those walls started to crumble. She found herself laughing more, smiling more, and even feeling a kind of peace she had never known. It scared her, but it also made her feel alive in ways she couldn't explain. Jack, on the other hand, couldn't get Lyra out of his head. He couldn't help but wonder what the future might look like if they were together. He knew it wouldn't be easy, that there would be challenges. But every time he saw Lyra's eyes, every time he heard her voice, he knew there was something worth fighting for. One afternoon, as Jack worked in the repair bay, he received a message from Lyra. She had asked him to meet her outside the station near the observation deck. He wasn't sure what to expect, but he couldn't ignore the excitement that bubbled up inside him. He wiped his hands on a rag, grabbed his coat, and headed out. When Jack arrived at the observation deck, he found Lyra standing near the window, staring out at the stars. The sight was breathtaking, as it always was. The endless expanse of space stretched out before them, the stars twinkling like tiny diamonds. But Jack's attention was fully on Lyra, who stood there, looking more beautiful than ever. "Hey, Jack," said softly as he approached her. Lyra turned to him with a smile. "Hi, Jack." There was a brief silence before she spoke again, her voice calm but filled with emotion. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about taking things slow, about figuring it out together." Jack nodded, his heart beating a little faster. "I meant it. I'm not in a rush. I just want to be with you." Lyra's smile faltered for a moment as she looked out at the stars. "Again, that's the problem. I'm not sure if I can just be with you. My people, my mission, everything is so complicated. I have responsibilities, things I can't ignore." Jack took a step closer, his voice gentle. "I understand. But you don't have to carry all of that alone. We can figure it out together. Whatever you need, I'll be here." Lyra turned to face him, her eyes searching his. "But what if it's not that simple? What if I hurt you? What if my people, my world, can never accept us?" Jack reached out and took her hand in his grip firm but kind. "We don't know what will happen, but we can't let fear stop us from trying. We've already made it this far. And I believe in us." Lyra felt a lump form in her throat. She had spent so much of her life hiding from her feelings, burying them under the weight of duty and logic. But Jack, Jack made her feel things she couldn't explain. He made her want to be more than just a diplomat, more than just a member of her species. He made her want to be herself, without all the rules and expectations. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "You won't lose me," Jack promised, his voice steady. "I'm not going anywhere." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, though she quickly wiped them away. "Don't understand. I can't just let go of everything. I've worked so hard to get here, to prove myself to my people. But I don't know if I can keep pretending that nothing matters but the mission. I don't know if I can keep pretending that I don't care about you." Jack lifted her chin gently, making sure she was looking at him. "You don't have to. Pretend you can care about me. You can care about whatever you want. And I'll be here no matter what." Lyra's heart ached as she looked into Jack's eyes. There was no judgment in his gaze, no expectation, just acceptance. And for the first time in her life, Lyra allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe she could have something more, something that wasn't about duty or responsibility, but about connection and love. "I don't know what the future holds," she said softly, "but I want to be with you. I want to see where this goes." Jack's face broke into a smile, and he pulled her into a gentle embrace. "We'll figure it out together, one step at a time." As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, the stars outside seemed to shine even brighter. The future was uncertain, but in that moment, Jack and Lyra knew that they had each other. And that was enough. The days after their conversation on the observation deck were filled with new discoveries. Jack and Lyra spent more time together, learning about each other's worlds and trying to understand the feelings that had brought them so close. Each moment was both exciting and uncertain as they navigated the complex emotions they were experiencing. But despite the challenges, there was a quiet understanding between them. They were moving forward, step by step. One evening, as the station's lights dimmed and the stars twinkled outside, Jack found himself standing by the window in the repair bay, lost in thought. He had never imagined that he would find someone like Lyra. The connection they shared was unlike anything he had ever experienced, but it wasn't without its struggles. Lyra's responsibilities as a diplomat still weighed heavily on her, and she couldn't shake the feeling that her duty might one day tear them apart. Lyra, too, felt torn. She was dedicated to her people and their mission, but she couldn't ignore what she felt for Jack. Every time they were together, she felt a sense of peace, of belonging that she had never felt before. But the fear that came with their differences, her culture, her position still lingered in her mind. She couldn't help but worry about what would happen if they pursued this connection further. Could it really work? As if on cue, Lyra appeared. In the doorway of the repair bay, her expression was serious, and Jack immediately knew that something was on her mind. She walked toward him, her silver skin gleaming softly in the light, and stood beside him by the window. "Jack," Lyra began, her voice quiet, "we need to talk." Jack turned to face her, concern in his eyes. "What's on your mind?" "I've been thinking," she said, her gaze focused on the stars outside. "About everything. About us." Jack nodded, giving her his full attention. He had a feeling that this conversation wasn't going to be easy. "I know you want this to work," Lyra continued. "I can see how much you care about me. Can't help but wonder if I'm just dragging you into something you don't fully understand. My people have a lot of rules, Jack. We don't show emotions the way humans do. We don't let ourselves be vulnerable. I'm afraid that if I let myself feel too much, it will all fall apart." Jack reached out, placing a hand gently on her arm. "I understand, Lyra. I really do. But you don't have to do this alone. We don't have to follow anyone else's rules. We can make our own path." Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with both hope and fear. "But what if it's not enough? What if our differences are too big?" "I'm a diplomat, Jack. My mission here is important. If I let my feelings for you cloud my judgment, it could ruin everything." Jack's heart ached at the doubt in her voice. Took a deep breath before speaking. "I don't want you to give up your mission. I know how important it is to you. But I also know that you deserve to have something for yourself. Something real. You don't have to choose between your duty and your happiness. Maybe there's a way to balance both." Lyra shook her head slightly, her thoughts racing. "I've spent my whole life learning how to be strong, how to control my emotions. But when I'm with you, I feel like I'm letting go of everything I've ever known. It's both wonderful and terrifying." Jack stepped closer to her, his voice steady. "I'm not asking you to change who you are. I just want you to let yourself feel. You don't have to hide your heart from me, Lyra. Don't have to have all the answers right now, but we can take this one step at a time." Lyra's eyes softened as she looked at him. The warmth in his voice was undeniable, and for the first time in a long time, she felt the weight of her fears begin to lift. She had spent so long trying to be the perfect diplomat, always controlled, always logical. But with Jack, she felt free to be herself, even if that meant taking risks. "I don't know what the future holds," Lyra said quietly, her voice trembling slightly, "but I want to try. I want to see where this can go, even if it's scary." Jack smiled, his heart swelling with relief. "Then we'll figure it out together." For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just stood there, side by side, looking out at the stars. There was still uncertainty in the air, but it was no longer overwhelming. There was hope now, a quiet understanding that they didn't have to face the unknown alone. Lyra took a deep breath and looked up at Jack. "Thank you," she whispered, "for being patient with me, for believing in us." Jack's smile widened. "You don't have to thank me. I'm in this with you, Lyra. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." As they stood there, their hands brushed gently, a simple yet powerful connection between them. The future was still uncertain, and they both knew that there would be challenges ahead. But in that moment, they both felt something real, something worth fighting for. Lyra turned to Jack, her eyes filled with emotion. "I don't know if I can ever fully let go of my fears," she admitted, "but I want to try." "Where this journey takes us?" Jack nodded, his voice full of warmth. "And I'll be right there beside you, every step of the way." As they stood together, looking out at the stars, the universe seemed just a little bit smaller, a little bit more manageable. And for the first time in a long time, Lyra felt like she could breathe freely. She didn't have to carry the weight of the universe on her own. She had Jack, and that made all the difference. The days were getting harder for both Jack and Lyra. They had spent weeks trying to navigate their growing feelings, trying to balance their connection with the responsibilities that each of them carried. For Lyra, it was the weight of her duties as a diplomat. For Jack, it was the constant worry of what would happen if things didn't work out between them. The challenges seemed to be piling up, and neither of them knew how to face them. Lyra had become more distant in the past few days. Jack noticed it every time they met. She would smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. She would laugh, but the sound felt forced. He could see the stress in her face, in the way she carried herself. It worried him, and he couldn't help but wonder if it was his fault. One afternoon, as Jack was working on a ship repair, Lyra appeared in the doorway of the repair bay. She looked troubled, her expression serious as she walked towards him. Jack immediately set down his tools, sensing that something was wrong. "Lyra, what's going on?" he asked, his voice soft but filled with concern. She paused, her eyes downcast. "I need to talk to you," she said quietly. Jack led her to a quieter part of the station. Away from the hustle and bustle of the repair bay, they sat together. In the small lounge area, the silence between them heavy. "I've been thinking a lot about us," Lyra began, her voice steady but distant. "And I've realized something." Jack felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "What is it?" "I can't keep doing this," Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't keep going back and forth. Can't keep pretending like nothing matters except my mission." Jack's heart dropped. "What are you saying?" Lyra met his gaze, her eyes filled with regret. "I have to go back to my people. I've been away for too long, and there are things I have to take care of. I can't stay here anymore." Jack felt a sharp pain in his chest, as if the wind had been knocked out of him. "You're leaving?" "No." Lyra nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I never meant to hurt you, Jack, but I can't keep pretending that I can balance everything. Have a duty to my people, and I can't ignore it any longer." Jack was silent for a moment, trying to process her words. He had known this might happen, but hearing it out loud felt like a punch to the gut. He had hoped to know. He had believed that they could make it work, that their bond, no matter how unlikely, could overcome the distance between their worlds. "I understand," Jack said quietly, his voice shaky, "but it doesn't make it any easier." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, and she reached out, touching his hand gently. "I don't want to leave you, but I know how to be both the diplomat and the woman I am when I'm with you. Never been so torn in my life. Jack squeezed her hand, his heart aching. I don't want you to choose between us, but I know you have to do what feels right for you. If leaving is what you need to do, then I'll support you. The words felt hollow as he said them. In his heart, he didn't want her to go. But he knew that he couldn't force her to stay. Couldn't ask her to give up everything she had worked for just to be with him. I'll always care about you, Jack said softly, his voice full of emotion. Won't forget you, Lyra. You've changed my life. Lyra's eyes softened and she leaned in, brushing her lips gently against his. The kiss was brief, but it carried all the feelings they had been holding back for so long. When she pulled away, she looked at him with a sad smile. I'll never forget you either, Jack, she whispered. You've given me something I never thought I'd have, something real. Jack nodded, trying to swallow the lump in his throat. I'll always remember you, Lyra, no matter where you go. Lyra stood up, wiping away the tears that had fallen down her cheeks. I have to go now, she said softly, her voice trembling. But I'll always carry a part of you with me. Jack watched as she turned and walked away, her figure slowly disappearing into the distance. He didn't know if he would ever see her again, but he knew that this moment, this connection, would stay with him forever. The pain in his chest was unbearable, but he knew it was the price they both had to pay as he stood there. Staring at the empty space where Lyra had been, Jack felt a mixture of sadness and gratitude. He was sad that their time together had come to an end, but he was grateful for the time they had shared. He had experienced something real, something that he would carry with him for the rest of his life. The days after Lyra left felt long for Jack, each one blurred into the next as he tried to go about his life, but it wasn't the same. He couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness, as if something important was missing. Every time he passed the docking bay, he couldn't help but glance at the ships, hoping that Lyra's silver ship would return, hoping that he would see her again. But each time the bay was empty, and the silence in his heart grew louder. It had been 3 weeks since Lyra's departure, and Jack had been keeping busy working on repairs and making himself available to anyone who needed help. He had tried not to think about her, but it was impossible. He missed her presence, the way she made him feel like anything was possible. He missed her smile, her laugh, and the way her eyes lit up when they talked about their hopes for the future. One evening, as Jack was finishing up a repair job, he received a message. It was from an unknown source. At first, he hesitated to open it, but something urged him to click the message open. His heart skipped a beat as he read the brief text. Jack, I need your help. I'm in trouble. Please, come. The message was signed simply, Lyra. Without thinking, Jack grabbed his coat and rushed to the station's docking area. His heart raced in his chest as he made his way to the spaceport. Lyra's message had left him with more questions than answers. But he didn't care. All he could think about was getting to her, making sure she was okay. After everything that had happened, he couldn't just sit back and wait. When Jack arrived at the docking bay, he found a small, unmarked ship. It wasn't Lyra's usual vessel, but he could feel something in his gut that told him it was hers. He walked up to the ship, his footsteps echoing in the quiet, empty space. The hatch was already open, and Jack stepped inside without hesitation. Inside, it was dimly lit, but he could see Lyra standing near the control panel, her back to him. She looked up as Jack entered, and her eyes immediately locked onto his. A wave of relief washed over her face as she saw him. Jack, she whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't know who else to turn to. I didn't want to drag you into this. Lyra, what's going on? Jack asked, rushing toward her. What happened? Are you okay? Lyra took a deep breath and turned to face him. It's complicated. I was sent on a mission, and things went wrong. I had to leave quickly, my people. They found out what I was doing, and they're not happy. I didn't want to put you in danger, but I didn't know where else to go. Shaq's heart sank as he listened to her words, could see the fear in her eyes, the same fear he had seen the day they first met. You're in danger? He asked, his voice tight with concern. Lyra nodded, as my mission was to help mediate peace talks between 2 warring factions. But things got out of hand. I wasn't supposed to be involved with anyone, especially not someone like you. But I couldn't stay away. And now I've made things worse. Jack stepped closer to her, his mind racing. You didn't make anything worse, Lyra. You followed your heart. You didn't do anything wrong. Lyra shook her head, her eyes brimming with tears. You don't understand. If my people find out that I've become involved with a human, it could cause a diplomatic disaster. My people, Jack, they have rules. I've broken every one of them. Jack gently reached out and took her hand, his grip warm and comforting. You didn't break any rules, Lyra. You followed your heart. And that's more important than anything else. Lyra looked at him, her tears spilling over. I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted to leave you. But I didn't know how to stay without destroying everything. I thought if I just walked away, it would make it easier for both of us. Jack's heart ached as he watched her struggle. He knew the pain she felt. But he also knew that they couldn't keep running from what they had. They couldn't let fear rule their lives. You don't have to leave, he said softly, his voice full of conviction. I'm not going anywhere, Lyra. We can face this together. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Lyra looked at him, her face filled with doubt. But what if it's too much? What if our worlds can never be together? We don't know that for sure, Jack replied, squeezing her hand. But I know that we can figure it out. I'm willing to try if you are. For a long moment, Lyra said. Nothing. The silence in the ship was thick, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was a quiet understanding, a shared moment of truth. Lyra looked at Jack, and for the first time in weeks, she felt a glimmer of hope. I want to stay, she whispered, her voice breaking. I don't want to let go of what we have. I want to try. Jack smiled, his heart full of relief. Then, let's try. We'll figure it out. Together. Lyra's eyes softened, and she stepped into his arms. The embrace was warm and reassuring, like a promise of better days ahead. They didn't have all the answers, and they didn't know what the future held. But in that moment, they knew they had each other. That was enough.